The Deception. The Galactic Council's space station, Harmonia, loomed large against the backdrop of swirling nebula and twinkling stars. Its sleek, curved architecture spoke of advanced alien design, with gleaming spires that housed the hopes and dreams of 1,000 species. Today, it would become the stage for humanity's boldest move yet. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the airlock, her heart pounding beneath the nondescript uniform of a Centaurian maintenance worker. The holographic disguise flickered almost imperceptibly, a testament to the bleeding-edge technology Earth had poured its resources into for this mission. Final checks, people, she subvocalized, her words carried to her team via neural implants. Remember, we're here to fix the Council, not break it beyond repair. A chorus of affirmatives echoed in her mind as her team of 20 elite operatives finalized their preparations. Each was disguised as a different alien species, their human forms hidden beneath layers of holographic trickery and scent modulators. The airlock hissed open, and Sarah led her team into the bustling corridors of Harmonia. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved about, some hurrying to diplomatic meetings, others lounging in the station's numerous gardens and recreation areas. It was a celebration of diversity that would have been awe-inspiring under different circumstances. Keep it cool, Sarah reminded her team as they split into pre-assigned groups. We've got 6 hours until the summit begins. Get to your positions and wait for my signal. Sarah made her way towards the central hub, her eyes darting about, taking in every detail. The humans had spent years studying the layouts and security protocols of Harmonia, but nothing compared to first-hand reconnaissance. As she rounded a corner, she nearly collided with a towering reptilian draconid. "Watch where you're going, maintenance drone," the alien snarled, its forked tongue flicking out in annoyance. Sarah bowed her head submissively, playing her role perfectly. "Apologies, Excellency," she buzzed, mimicking the speech patterns of a Centaurian. "Phys 1 will be more careful." The draconid huffed and continued on its way. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Their disguises were holding up, even under close scrutiny. As the hours ticked by, Sarah's team meticulously worked their way through the station. They planted miniature quantum disruptors in key locations, devices that would temporarily neutralize energy weapons and communication systems when activated. In the engine rooms, mess halls, and even the waste recycling plants, humans posing as various alien workers went about their tasks, laying the groundwork for their audacious plan. 3 hours into the operation, Sarah received an alert from one of her team members, Jack Martinez. The young soldier's voice was tense in her mind. "Admiral, we've got a situation in Section 7G. I think one of the Caldorian delegates spotted Davis's hologram glitching." Sarah's mind raced. Section 7G was near the high security areas. If their cover was blown there, the entire mission could be compromised. "Stay calm, Martinez. What's the Caldorian doing?" "He's talking to station security now. They're reviewing camera footage." Sarah made a split-second decision. Initiate Protocol Omega-3. We're accelerating the timeline. Across the station, her team acknowledged the order. They began moving with increased urgency, finalizing their preparations for the strike. Sarah herself headed towards the council chambers, her heart rate elevating as she wove through the crowded corridors. As she approached the grand doors leading to the Galactic Council's inner sanctum, Sarah noticed an increased security presence. Armored guards from various species stood at attention, their eyes scanning the crowds with heightened alertness. "They're onto us," she subvocalized to her team. "Be ready for anything." Just then, a commotion erupted near one of the side entrances. Sarah turned to see Davis, his holographic disguise failing, grappling with 2 security guards. The human's true form flickered in and out of view as he fought. It was the distraction Sarah needed. As guards rushed to assist their colleagues, she slipped through a service entrance, using the maintenance worker credentials they had painstakingly forged over the past year. The back rooms of the council chambers were a maze of narrow corridors and cramped offices. Sarah moved swiftly, disabling security cameras with targeted EMP bursts from a device concealed in her uniform. She could hear the sounds of struggle echoing through the station's communication systems as her team engaged with the increasingly alerted security forces. "Zeta team, status report," she demanded as she worked her way closer to her objective. "We've secured the communication hub, Admiral," came the response. "Ready to broadcast on your command." "Excellent. Epsilon team, we're in position outside the main chamber, awaiting your signal." Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. Despite the complications, they were on track. She rounded a final corner and found herself facing an ornate door adorned with the symbols of the Galactic Council's founding races. Beyond it lay the private meeting room, where the Council's inner circle made their most crucial decisions. As she reached for the door, a soft voice spoke from behind her. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, human." Sarah whirled around, her hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. Before her stood a willowy alien with iridescent skin and large, expressive eyes. An empathy, one of the galaxy's most perceptive species. "How long have you known?" Sarah asked, her mind racing through possible scenarios. The empathy's lips curved in a sad smile. "Since the moment you stepped aboard. Your kind's emotions are intense, difficult to miss, especially when cloaked in layers of deception." Sarah tensed, ready for a fight, but the alien raised its hands in a gesture of peace. "I am not here to stop you, Admiral Chen. I am here to warn you." Confusion rippled through Sarah. "Warn me? About what?" "The council you seek to confront, it is not what you believe it to be. There are factions within factions, plots within plots. What you do here today will set in motion events that will reshape the galaxy." Before Sarah could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. The empathy's eyes widened. "It seems your time for choice has run out. Remember, Admiral, sometimes the greatest deceptions are the ones we tell ourselves." With that cryptic message, the alien turned and vanished down the corridor, leaving Sarah alone before the council's door. The sounds of battle were growing closer. Her team needed her decision now. Taking a deep breath, Sarah steeled herself. They had come too far to turn back now. Whatever lay beyond that door, humanity would face it head-on. She placed her hand on the scanner, the forged credentials granting her access to the heart of galactic power. As the door slid open, Sarah Chen stepped forward, ready to change the course of history. Little did she know, the true nature of the deception was only beginning to unravel. The pandemonium. The moment Admiral Sarah Chen breached the Council's inner sanctum, all hell broke loose. The serene atmosphere of Harmonia shattered like glass as the humans revealed their true intentions. The air crackled with energy as hidden weapons were drawn, and the once peaceful corridors of the space station erupted into chaos. Now, Sarah's command echoed through the neural network connecting her team. In an instant, the disguised human operatives activated their sonic weapons, unleashing a cacophony that brought aliens to their knees, clutching at sensory organs humans didn't even possess. In the council chambers, Sarah faced a semicircle of stunned alien diplomats. Species from across the galaxy stared at her in shock as her holographic disguise melted away, revealing her true human form. This council stands accused of crimes against humanity and other developing species, Sarah announced, her voice amplified by the room's acoustics. "We are here to demand justice and—" Her words were cut short as a massive, tentacled creature lunged at her from the shadows. Sarah ducked, barely avoiding its grasp, and fired her sonic pistol. The alien recoiled, its writhing appendages quivering in agony. Outside in the corridors, the carefully laid plans began to unravel. Jack Martinez, the rookie soldier on his first off-world mission, found himself separated from his squad as panicked aliens of all species fled in every direction. "This is Martinez," he subvocalized, trying to keep the fear out of his voice. "I've lost visual on my team. Request immediate backup." Static was his only reply. The quantum disruptors they'd planted were working too well, jamming all communications. including their own. Jack's training kicked in as he assessed his surroundings. He was in an unfamiliar section of the station, sleek corridors branching off in multiple directions. Distant sounds of struggle echoed from all around, and warning klaxons blared overhead. Choosing a direction at random, Jack sprinted down a hallway, his holographic disguise flickering and failing. He rounded a corner and skidded to a halt before a massive transparent steel window. Beyond it, he could see the space battle unfolding. Human ships, hiding in wait, had emerged to engage the station's defensive fleet. Energy weapons lanced across the void, and explosions blossomed silently in the vacuum of space. A group of insectoid aliens chittered in alarm as they spotted Jack. He raised his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace, but the aliens were having none of it. They charged, mandibles clacking menacingly. Jack turned and ran, his heart pounding. He hadn't signed up for this. The mission was supposed to be in and out, a surgical strike to force the Council to acknowledge humanity's place in the galactic community. Now it felt like the start of an interstellar war. As he fled, Jack noticed a subtle change in his surroundings. The pristine corridors gave way to more utilitarian designs. Warning signs in multiple alien languages lined the walls. He'd stumbled into a restricted area. Hearing the insectoid aliens in pursuit, Jack made a split-second decision. He dove through an unmarked door, slamming it shut behind him. As his eyes adjusted to the dimmer lighting, he realized he was in some kind of laboratory. Strange equipment lined the walls, and holographic displays flickered with data in languages he couldn't comprehend. In the center of the room, a large containment unit hummed with energy. Inside, a swirling, iridescent substance pulsed rhythmically. "What the hell?" Jack muttered, approaching the containment unit cautiously. "Step away from there, human," a voice said from behind him. Jack whirled around, raising his weapon. A young alien stood in a doorway he hadn't noticed before. Its skin was a pale blue, with bioluminescent patterns swirling beneath the surface. Large, multifaceted eyes regarded Jack with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "Who are you?" Jack demanded. "What is this place?" The alien's mouth parts twitched in what might have been a nervous smile. "I am Zix, a junior xenobiologist. And you, human, have stumbled into something far larger than your species' petty grievances with the Council." Before Jack could respond, the door he'd entered through burst open. The insectoid aliens poured in, their chitin armor gleaming under the lab's lights. Jack swung his sonic weapon towards them, but Zix's voice cut through the tension. "Wait," the young alien shouted. "You cannot fight in here. The substance is highly volatile." The insectoids hesitated, their antennae twitching as they assessed the situation. Jack kept his weapon trained on them, but glanced at Zix. "What substance? What's going on here?" Zix moved slowly, positioning itself between Jack and the containment unit. "This is a cure," the alien explained. "A cure for a plague that threatens to sweep across the galaxy. A plague that—" An explosion rocked the station, cutting off Zix's words. The lights flickered, and for a heart-stopping moment, the containment unit's energy field wavered. In the corridors beyond the lab, the sounds of battle intensified. The insectoid aliens chittered amongst themselves before turning and rushing out, presumably to defend against the human incursion. Jack lowered his weapon slightly, his mind reeling. "A cure? For what plague? We haven't heard anything about this." Zix's bioluminescent patterns pulsed rapidly, a sign of agitation. "Of course you haven't. The Council has kept it secret to prevent a panic. But now, with your attack..." The alien trailed off, its large eyes focusing on something beyond the lab's walls. Another explosion, closer this time, sent tremors through the floor. Warning lights bathed the lab in a red glow as emergency systems activated. "We have to get this cure out of here," Zix said urgently. "If the station is destroyed, years of work will be lost, and billions will suffer." Jack's training screamed at him not to trust the alien, but something in Zix's demeanor spoke of sincerity. He made a decision that would alter the course of the conflict. "Okay," he said, lowering his weapon completely. "What do you need me to do?" As Zix began explaining the delicate process of transporting the cure, alarms blared throughout the station. The AI's voice, translated into multiple languages, echoed through every chamber and corridor. "Warning. Station integrity compromised. Hostile forces have breached multiple sectors. All non-security personnel, please proceed to designated evacuation points." This is not a drill. In the council chambers, Admiral Sarah Chen fought hand-to-hand with alien security forces, her carefully laid plans dissolving into chaos around her. Her neural implant crackled with fragmented messages from her team, reports of unexpected resistance and pleas for new orders. As she grappled with a multi-limbed opponent, Sarah caught a glimpse through a viewport of the battle outside. To her horror, she saw ships appearing out of hyperspace, ships that were neither human nor aligned with the known council races. In that moment, Sarah realized the true scale of her miscalculation. They had struck the Galactic Council only to find themselves in the middle of a much larger, more dangerous conflict. The real pandemonium was only just beginning. Throughout Harmonia, humans and aliens alike faced a critical choice: continue their battle against each other or unite against an unknown threat emerging from the stars. The fate of not just humanity, but the entire galaxy, would hinge on the decisions made in the chaos of these next few moments. The revelation. Admiral Sarah Chen's boots echoed on the polished floor as she strode into the heart of the Galactic Council chambers. The room, moments ago a battlefield, now stood eerily silent. Bodies of various species lay strewn about, testament to the ferocity of the fighting. But it was the emptiness that truly unnerved her. "Where are they?" she muttered, her eyes scanning the grand hall. The council's inner circle, the very targets of this audacious human strike, were nowhere to be seen. As if in answer to her question, a shimmering hologram flickered to life in the center of the room. Sarah's hand instinctively went to her weapon, but she froze as the image solidified into a familiar face. "Governor San," she breathed, recognizing the Arcturian diplomat who had been humanity's staunchest ally in the council. The hologram of San looked weary, its translucent form flickering with static. "Admiral Chen, if you are seeing this, then our worst fears have come to pass." Sarah stepped closer, her mind racing. This message had been prepared in advance. But why? The Galactic Council you sought to confront today no longer exists as you knew it. Chan's hologram continued. "We have been compromised from within, divided by an unseen force that seeks to pit the younger races against each other." The hologram waved a hand, and the chamber filled with swirling star maps and data streams. Sarah watched in growing horror as evidence of secret meetings, clandestine weapons development, and manipulated diplomatic incidents played out before her. A shadow faction within the council has been working to isolate Earth and other emerging species, Tan explained. "They fear your potential, your rapid advancement, but they are merely puppets for a greater threat." The star map zoomed in on a region of space far beyond the known galactic territories. Strange energy readings pulsed from an uncharted system. "We believe an ancient race, long thought extinct, is awakening." San's voice grew grave. "They seek to reclaim their place as the supreme power in the galaxy, using our conflicts as a smokescreen for their return." Sarah's mind reeled. The implications were staggering. Everything they thought they knew, every reason for this desperate assault, was built on a foundation of lies and manipulation. "Admiral Chen." San's hologram locked eyes with her. "You must understand. The division of the Council, the treatment of Earth, it was all engineered to weaken us. United, we might stand a chance against what's coming. Divided, we will fall." The hologram flickered and died, leaving Sarah alone in the silent chamber. She stood motionless for a long moment, the weight of this revelation pressing down on her. Finally, she activated her neural comm. "All teams, fall back to extraction points. Mission parameters have changed. We err." Her words were cut short as a massive explosion rocked the station. Emergency klaxons blared to life, and the chamber's lighting shifted to a pulsing red. "Admiral," a voice crackled through her comm. It was her second-in-command, Lieutenant Rivera. "Unknown ships have breached our perimeter. They're not Council designs. We're taking heavy losses." Sarah sprinted from the chamber, her mind racing to formulate a new strategy. As she emerged into the main corridor, she collided with a group of panicked aliens fleeing the other way. "Wait," she called out in Galactic Standard. "We need to work together. There's a greater threat." But her words fell on deaf ears as the aliens disappeared around a corner. Sarah gritted her teeth in frustration. How could she convince them when humans had just launched an unprovoked attack? Meanwhile, in the restricted laboratory section of the station, Jack Martinez and his unlikely alien ally, Zix, worked feverishly to secure the mysterious cure. "Careful with that canister," Zix chittered, its bioluminescent patterns flashing with anxiety. "If it ruptures, the contagion could spread throughout the station." Jack's hands trembled slightly as he placed the glowing container into a specialized transport unit. "What exactly is this a cure for?" he asked, eyeing the swirling liquid within. Zix's multifaceted eyes darkened. "It is a remedy for a plague of madness," the alien explained, "a psychic contagion that drives intelligent species to irrational violence and paranoia. We've tracked its spread through several outer colonies." A chill ran down Jack's spine. "Is that what's happening here, on the station?" Zix shook its head. "No, this conflict is merely—" The alien's words were drowned out by another explosion, closer this time. The lab's reinforced walls shuddered, and equipment crashed to the floor. "We need to move," Jack said, sealing the transport unit. "Can you get us to a ship?" Zix's skin rippled with uncertainty. "There's an emergency shuttle bay 2 levels down, but—" "That'll do," Jack interrupted, hefting the precious cargo. "Lead the way." As they navigated the chaotic corridors of Harmonia, Jack's military training kicked in. He found himself protecting Zix from panicked mobs and falling debris, while the aliens' knowledge of the station's layout proved invaluable. They were nearly to the shuttle bay when a familiar voice stopped Jack in his tracks. "Martinez, thank God you're alive." Jack turned to see Admiral Chen sprinting towards them, a group of human and alien soldiers in tow. Her eyes widened as she saw Zix and the container Jack carried. "Sir," Jack saluted awkwardly, still clutching the transport unit. "The mission. Things have changed, haven't they?" Sarah nodded grimly. "More than you know, soldier." She turned to Zix, her expression a mix of wariness and hope. "I'm Admiral Chen. I believe we need to talk." In the tense minutes that followed, as they barricaded themselves in the shuttle bay, revelations flew fast and furious. Sarah shared what she had learned from Governor Sand's hologram, while Zix explained the nature of the psychic plague and the cure they had developed. "It all fits," Sarah mused, pacing the small space. "This plague could be the perfect tool for the ancient race to weaken us, spreading paranoia, turning us against each other." "But why develop the cure in secret?" Jack asked, glancing at Zix. The alien's bioluminescence pulsed sadly. The Council feared mass panic, and some factions saw the plague as a potential weapon. They wanted to control its deployment and the distribution of the cure. A heavy silence fell over the group, broken only by the distant sounds of battle. "So what now?" Jack finally asked, looking to Sarah. The Admiral's eyes blazed with determination. "Now we change the game. We need to get that cure off this station and spread the truth about what's really happening." She turned to the assembled group, a mix of humans and aliens who, just hours ago, had been sworn enemies. "I know you have no reason to trust us," Sarah addressed the aliens. "We came here as attackers, deceived by the same lies that have divided us all. But right now, we face a threat greater than our differences. Will you join us?" There was a moment of tense silence, broken by a hulking Breconid stepping forward. "I watched your soldiers spare civilians during your assault. The reptilian alien rumbled. "You are honorable warriors. We will fight beside you." A murmur of agreement rippled through the group. Humans and aliens alike nodded, a fragile alliance born of desperation and hope. Sarah allowed herself a small smile before turning to Jack and Zix. "You two, get that cure to safety. Find Governor Sand if you can. The rest of us will buy you time and gather as many allies as we can." As the newly formed team prepared for battle, alarms blared once again. A voice, deep and resonant, echoed through the station's comm systems. It spoke in no language any of them recognized, yet they all understood its chilling meaning. "Children of the young races, your time of reckoning has come. Kneel before your return masters, or face extinction." The true enemy had finally revealed itself, and in the crucible of this revelation, the fate of the galaxy would be decided. The race against time. The corridors of Harmonia, once a symbol of interstellar cooperation, now echoed with the sounds of panic and chaos. News of the plague spread like wildfire through the station's inhabitants, an invisible contagion of fear that threatened to unravel the fragile alliance Admiral Sarah Chen had forged. "Move! Move!" Sarah shouted, leading a diverse group of human and alien soldiers through the winding passages. They were a motley crew. Draconids with their scaled hides, ethereal empathy, bulky Zentarians, and human marines, all united by the terrifying revelation of a common enemy. Behind them, the chittering hordes of those already succumbing to the psychic plague grew louder. The disease worked fast, turning its victims into paranoid, violent shadows of their former selves. "Admiral," a Zentarian warrior rumbled, its crystalline skin glittering under the emergency lights. "We cannot outrun them forever. We must make a stand." Sarah gritted her teeth, knowing the alien was right. "Agreed. There's a defensible position up ahead. We'll hold them there while Martins and Zix complete their mission." As if summoned by her words, Jack's voice crackled over the comm. "Admiral, we've reached the hangar, but we've got a problem. The shuttle's navigation system is fried. We can launch, but we'll be flying blind." Sarah cursed under her breath. Nothing could be simple, could it? "Can you fix it?" "Negative," Jack replied, the stress evident in his voice. "But Zix thinks he can rig up a makeshift guidance system using parts from the station. We need time." "Time is one thing we don't have, soldier," Sarah said grimly. She could see the intersection ahead where they'd make their stand. "But we'll buy you as much as we can. Chen out." As Sarah's team barricaded the corridor and prepared for battle, Jack and Zix worked feverishly in the hangar bay. The sleek evacuation shuttle sat before them, its hull gleaming under the harsh emergency lighting. "Hand me that synaptic coupler," Zix chittered, its multiple limbs working in perfect synchronization as it rewired the shuttle's systems. Jack passed the alien tool, marveling at how quickly he'd adapted to working with a being so fundamentally different from himself. "How much longer?" he asked, eyeing the hangar doors nervously. Zix's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with concentration. "Minutes, perhaps. But Jack, even if we succeed, we face another problem. The cure's effectiveness diminishes rapidly once synthesized. We must deliver it to a major population center within 12 hours, or all is lost." Jack's heart sank. The nearest allied world is at least 15 hours away at maximum speed. "Precisely," Zix confirmed grimly. "We need a miracle." Back at the barricade, Sarah's team fought with desperate valor. Draconid warriors roared as they held the line, their scaled hides turning aside blows that would have felled a human. Empathy used their psychic abilities to momentarily clear the minds of the infected, buying precious seconds of hesitation. Humans and Zentarians fought side by side, covering each other with a coordination that belied their recent enmity. But it wasn't enough. The horde of infected station inhabitants grew with each passing minute, their numbers swelled by those who fell to the plague's influence. Sarah watched in horror as a young empathy soldier succumbed before her eyes, its serene features twisting into a mask of primal rage. "Admiral," Lieutenant Rivera called out, ducking a wild swing from a former ally. We can't hold much longer. Sarah knew he was right. They were being overwhelmed, and Jack needed more time. In that moment, she made a decision that would alter the course of the battle. All units, fall back to the hangar bay, she ordered. We're going to launch that shuttle ourselves. The fighting retreat was costly. Sarah watched brave soldiers of a half-dozen species fall, buying time with their lives for the rest to escape. By the time they reached the hangar, their numbers had been cut in half. Jack and Zix looked up in surprise as the battered group burst in, sealing the doors behind them. "Change of plans," Sarah announced, her voice hoarse from shouting orders. "We're all going. This station is lost." As if to emphasize her point, a massive explosion rocked Harmonia. Through the hangar's viewports, they could see pieces of the station's outer hull spinning away into the void. "We're out of time," Jack said, hefting the precious container of cure. "The guidance system isn't finished." Sarah's mind raced. An unguided jump could scatter them across half the galaxy. But staying meant certain death, or worse, falling to the plague and becoming part of the very threat they sought to stop. A soft voice spoke up. "I can guide us." All eyes turned to a willowy empathy, its iridescent skin pale with exhaustion. "How?" Sarah demanded. "My people have a connection to the currents of spacetime," the empathy explained. "With focus, I can sense the shortest path to the nearest inhabited world." It was a desperate gamble, but they were out of options. "Do it," Sarah ordered. What followed was a frantic rush as the diverse crew piled into the shuttle, designed for a fraction of their number. Species that had been at war mere hours ago now pressed together in the cramped space, united by their shared peril. Jack secured the cure in the shuttle's storage compartment, then strapped himself in next to Zix. The alien's usual luminescent patterns were dim, a sign of its exhaustion. "Hey," Jack said softly. "We're going to make it." Zix's multifaceted eyes turned to him. "How can you be so sure?" Jack managed a grim smile. "Because we have to." At the shuttle's controls, Sarah worked in tandem with the empathy navigator, their movements a dance of human intuition and alien sensory input. The hangar doors began to buckle as the infected horde outside redoubled their efforts. "Everyone hold on to something," Sarah shouted. "This is going to be rough." With a final, wrenching shriek, the hangar doors gave way. A tide of corrupted bodies surged forward, their eyes wild with madness induced by the psychic plague. Sarah slammed the launch controls. The shuttle's engines roared to life, catapulting them out of the disintegrating station and into the star-studded void beyond. Through the viewscreen, they watched as Harmonia, once the crown jewel of galactic cooperation, broke apart in a series of silent explosions. The infected and the innocent alike were consigned to the cold embrace of space. There was no time to mourn. No sooner had they cleared the debris field than unknown vessels appeared on their sensors, the vanguard of the ancient race, come to reclaim their dominion. "They're locking weapons," Rivera called out from the sensor station. Sarah turned to the empathy navigator. "We need that jump, now." The alien's eyes were closed in deep concentration, its form seeming to shimmer as it attuned itself to the cosmic currents. "I have it," it whispered. "Plotting course now." Energy beams lanced out from the pursuing ships, missing the shuttle by mere meters. The cabin shook violently as Sarah executed evasive maneuvers that pushed the small craft to its structural limits. "Course plotted," the empathy cried. Sarah's hand hovered over the jump activation switch. In this moment, the fate of not just their small crew, but potentially the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. If the empathy's calculations were off by even a fraction, they could materialize inside a star or be lost in the void between systems. Another near miss rocked the shuttle. Warnings blared as the hull temperature spiked. "Admiral," Jack called out, "we can't take another hit." Sarah took a deep breath. "May the stars guide us," she murmured, and activated the jump drive. The universe seemed to twist around them, reality itself bending as they plunged into the swirling maw of hyperspace. Their race against time had only just begun, the Cure's clock ticking away as they hurtled towards an uncertain destination. In the cabin, humans and aliens alike held their breath, united in hope and terror. Somewhere out there was salvation, if only they could reach it in time. The sacrifice and redemption. The shuttle burst from hyperspace in a flash of celestial light, alarms blaring and systems failing. Inside the cramped cabin, the motley crew of humans and aliens were thrown about violently as Admiral Sarah Chen fought to stabilize their descent. Status report. Sarah barked, her hands dancing over the controls. Lieutenant Rivera, nursing a gash on his forehead, checked the readouts. We've arrived in the Proxima Centauri system. Admiral, Proxima dead ahead, but our engines are shot, and life support is failing. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. The empathy navigator had done it, guiding them to the nearest human colony. But their troubles were far from over. What about the Cure? She asked, glancing back at Jack and Zix. Jack was already checking the containment unit. Intact, he reported, relief evident in his voice. But Zix says we've only got about an hour before it degrades completely. An hour. After everything they'd been through, their fate would be decided in the next 60 minutes. As they plummeted towards Proxima, the ship's comm system crackled to life. A stern voice filled the cabin. Unidentified vessel, you are entering restricted space. Identify yourself immediately, or you will be shot down. Sarah took a deep breath. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth Fleet. We are carrying the Cure critical to galactic security. Request immediate landing clearance and medical support. There was a long pause, filled only by the groaning of the shuttle's overtaxed hull. Admiral Chen. The voice finally responded, confusion evident. You're listed as. Wait, we're detecting multiple non-human life signs aboard your vessel. Explain yourself. Sarah cursed under her breath. Of course, news of the conflict wouldn't have reached this far yet. There's no time to explain, she said urgently. I invoke Emergency Protocol Omega. Verification code. Tango Echo Nova 9 to 94. The fate of humanity and all sentient life hangs in the balance. We need to land now. Another agonizing pause. The shuttle was entering the upper atmosphere now, the viewport glowing red with the heat of re-entry. Emergency Protocol Omega confirmed. The voice finally replied. Dispatching medical and security teams to landing pad Alpha 7. May the stars watch over you, Admiral. As Sarah guided the failing shuttle towards the designated landing zone, she saw a flurry of activity below. Emergency vehicles raced across the surface of the young colony, their lights flashing in the planet's perpetual twilight. This is going to be rough, she warned her crew. Braced for impact. The shuttle hit the landing pad hard, skidding across its surface in a shower of sparks. When it finally came to rest, smoke was pouring from its engines, and the hull was creaking ominously. Everybody out, Sarah ordered, coughing in the acrid smoke. They stumbled from the wreckage, a parade of battered humans and aliens that drew gasps and raised weapons from the assembled colonial security forces. Jack emerged last, cradling the precious containment unit. A gruff-looking colonel approached, his hand on his sidearm. Admiral Chen, you'd better start explaining fast. Why are you consorting with Xenos, and what in the name of Earth is that? He pointed at the glowing canister in Jack's arms. Sarah stood tall, her uniform torn and bloodied, but her voice steady. Colonel, I know this looks bad, but we don't have time for a full debrief. That canister contains the cure to a psychic plague engineered by an ancient race intent on subjugating all younger species. If we don't synthesize and distribute it within the hour, billions will die. The colonel's eyes widened, but to his credit, he adapted quickly. Med team, he shouted, get that canister to the lab immediately. As colonial scientists rushed forward to take the cure, Zix stepped up, its bioluminescence pulsing weakly. I must go with them, the alien insisted. The synthesis process is delicate. One mistake could render the cure useless. The colonel looked to Sarah, who nodded. Let him through. In fact, we'll all need to work together if we're going to pull this off. What followed was a whirlwind of activity. The colonial lab, never designed for such a monumental task, was transformed into a hub of interspecies cooperation. Zix directed the synthesis process, its multiple limbs working in perfect harmony with the human scientists. The empathy used their psychic abilities to stabilize the cure's more volatile components, while Draconid warriors lent their incredible strength to operate machinery pushed to its limits. Jack found himself working alongside a young colonial scientist, passing tools and making adjustments as needed. I'm Jack, he said during a brief lull. Jack Martinez. The scientist smiled tiredly. Ava Potel. Hell of a day, Jack couldn't help but laugh. You could say that. When I woke up this morning, I thought I was going to war against aliens. Now I'm working with them to save the galaxy. Ava's eyes widened. Is it really that serious? Jack nodded grimly. I've seen what this plague does. And there's an ancient race out there, pulling the strings. If we fail here, he trailed off, unable to finish the thought. A commotion at the lab's entrance drew their attention. Admiral Chen burst in, her face pale. We've got incoming, she shouted. Multiple ships just appeared in orbit. They're not ours, and they're not friendly. The colonel cursed. How long until the cure is ready? Zix's voice rang out from the center of the lab. Minutes only. We cannot rush the final stabilization process. Sarah's mind raced. They were so close, but if those ships belonged to the ancient race, everything could still be lost. Colonel, she said, her voice tight. What kind of orbital defenses does this colony have? The man's face fell. Not nearly enough to hold off a determined assault. Admiral, we're a scientific outpost, not a military installation. Sarah nodded, having expected as much. She turned to her battered crew, humans and aliens alike watching her with tired but determined eyes. I need volunteers, she said simply. We have a half-functioning shuttle and a whole lot of courage. Who's with me? There was no hesitation. Hands of every shape and color raised in unison. Admiral, Jack stepped forward. Let me fly it. You're needed here to coordinate the cure's distribution. Sarah wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. She clasped his shoulder firmly. Give him hell, Martinez. As Jack and a mixed team of humans and aliens raced back to the shuttle, Sarah turned to the colonel. Get me a line to Earth Fleet Command. It's time they knew the full story. High above Proxima, Jack's patchwork crew worked miracles to get the battered shuttle spaceworthy. They launched just as the first enemy ships began their descent, a lone David against a flight of Goliaths. Remember, Jack said to his diverse team, we just need to buy a few more minutes. Every second we can delay them increases the chance of that cure saving billions. In the tense minutes that followed, the shuttle darted and weaved through the Proxima Centauri system. Jack's piloting skills, honed in simulators but never tested in real combat, were pushed to their limits. His alien crewmates manned the shuttle's meager weapons, scoring hits that, while not destructive, forced the larger ships to constantly adjust their approach. Back on the surface, Sarah watched the battle unfold on tactical displays, her heart in her throat. Beside her, Zix worked feverishly with the human scientists, their earlier mistrust forgotten in the heat of shared purpose. It's done, Zix suddenly cried, holding up a vial of shimmering liquid. At that moment, Jack's voice crackled over the comm. We can't hold them anymore. We're coming in hot, and they're right behind us. Sarah's mind raced. They had the cure, but no way to distribute it widely enough, fast enough. Unless... Jack, she said, her voice steady despite the weight of her decision. Can you get that shuttle into the upper atmosphere? There was a pause. When Jack responded, his voice was grim with understanding. Yes, ma'am. one way or another. Sarah turned to Zix and the scientists. If we disperse the cure in the upper atmosphere, will it spread? Zix's bioluminescent patterns pulsed rapidly as it calculated. Yes, yes. The planet's wind patterns would carry it across the globe within hours. And to nearby systems. Sarah pressed. The alien's multifaceted eyes widened. The solar winds. Admiral, you're a genius. It could work. Sarah nodded, her heart heavy. Get that cure to the shuttle. Now. Martinez, she said into the comm. I'm sending you the package. You know what to do. Copy that. Admiral, Jack replied, his voice steady despite the implications. It's been an honor. As Zix rushed the cure to the battered shuttle, now streaking flames across the sky in its descent, Sarah turned to the assembly of humans and aliens in the lab. Whatever happens next, she said, her voice carrying to every corner, remember this moment. Remember how we came together, every species standing as one against the darkness. This is the day we prove that unity is our greatest strength. High above, Jack's shuttle climbed once more, straining against Proxima's gravity with its last reserves of power. The enemy ships, caught off guard by the maneuver, scrambled to adjust their pursuit. This is for Earth, Jack said, his hand on the release switch. For every sentient being in this messed-up galaxy of ours. He closed his eyes and activated the dispersal mechanism. The cure burst from the shuttle in a glittering cloud, catching the light of Proxima Centauri and spreading in a dazzling display across the upper atmosphere. As the pursuing ships flew through the shimmering mist, their erratic movements suddenly stabilized. Confused communications filled the airwaves as the alien crews shook off the effects of the psychic plague. On the surface, Sarah and the others watched in awe as the sky itself seemed to shimmer with hope. In the days that followed, the true scope of their victory became clear. The cure, carried on solar winds, reached populated systems with unprecedented speed. The ancient race, their puppet armies now free of the plague's influence, found themselves facing a united front of younger species. But victory had come at a cost. Jack Martinez and his brave crew were hailed as heroes, their sacrifice honored across 100 worlds. Sarah Chen, once prepared to go to war against aliens, now stood as a symbol of interspecies cooperation. As representatives from Earth and other worlds gathered to form a new galactic alliance, Sarah stood at the podium, her gaze sweeping across the assembled beings of myriad shapes and colors. We came to the precipice of destruction, she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. We were manipulated, turned against one another by an enemy that sought to divide and conquer. But in our darkest hour, we discovered a truth more powerful than any weapon. Our diversity is our strength. She paused, her eyes misting as she remembered those lost in the conflict. We are many species, but we share one galaxy, one future. The sacrifices made to bring us to this point must never be forgotten. Let them fuel our determination to move forward together, to explore, to learn, and to grow. Not as humans, or draconids, or empathy, or any single race, but as united sentient beings. As applause filled the chamber, Sarah caught Zix's eye in the crowd. The alien's bioluminescent patterns pulsed in a way she now recognized as a smile. They had started as enemies, become reluctant allies, and now stood as friends at the dawn of a new era. The galaxy, vast and full of wonders, awaited their united exploration.